Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, we'll be wrapping up our very last, final last top 40 running back rankings and tiers video before the regular season kicks off. So if you still have some drafts left between now and the regular season kickoff, this video is for y'all. We did the same thing with wide receivers yesterday. We'll link that in the show notes. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, because we will be doing this for week one next week as well. All right. And we will jump right into the top of things. At tier one, we've got the three players, Gibbs, Saquon, and Bijan Robinson. Should be no surprise to anyone here. These are the early to mid first round picks for y'all. Gibbs is going to be a monster. I think they're going to use him more this year than they did last year. I know David Montgomery's back, should take some goal line work, but I do imagine the team is going to start shifting a little bit more into Gibbs's favor with the touches. This is a team that's projected to win fewer games than last year, should have some closer battles, and need to throw the ball more. And that obviously lends itself to Gibbs being a beast in PPR formats, which again is what these rankings are. Saquon is my 2, Bijan is my 3. You can go back and forth on those. One thing I will say about Bijan being a Falcons fan, I know we've kind of had this reputation of, well, we had a really good offensive line for the last like 3-4 years. And then I think everyone kind of caught on to it maybe last year-ish. And then we lost Drew Dahlman, our center, this offseason. And then we just lost Caleb McGarry, our starting right tackle, last week. And then we also lost his backup at tackle last week for the season. Those were some of our best run blocking players on our offensive line. Our offensive line was great in run blocking. We were average in pass blocking, but this is a massive hit to that line. So while I don't want to overthink it, like Bijan's going to get targeted a ton, he's going to play a ton, he's going to be our goal line back, our pass catching back, all that stuff, and etc. I will say that might be a little bit of a tier break for me. Saquon, I expect him to go out week one, Philly, just dominate Dallas's defense, and Saquon's going to be looked at again as like, why the hell would anyone put Saquon down at the 107, 108, 109 in fantasy drafts after a single week? But these are the three top dogs, obviously, and I think everyone kind of agrees with that. When we drop into tier 2, again, this is full PPR. We've got three players. These are guys that are back first, at the 1-2 turn, but wouldn't really argue with people picking them in any order, in any capacity, from like pick 10 down to pick 15, 16, something like that. So we've got C-Mac, we've got Devon Achane, and Derrick Henry. Everything from C-Mac, I said at the beginning of the offseason, I want to see him stay completely healthy throughout the offseason. And I voiced my concerns about whether or not he's going to be the same player that he was pre all of these injuries. And we don't know that for a fact. But right now, you also look at the backfield in San Francisco. They've got a lot of injuries. Isaac Rendell just returning from the shoulder injury. They traded for Brian Robinson, who I think is more of just like a depth piece to make sure that they have a viable running back at all times if C-Mac were to go down. So not concerned about the competition behind C-Mac, but, he's getting a little bit older, whatever. Achane, you got the calf injury, but all signs are pointing towards, as long as he doesn't suffer a setback between now and the start of the season, he's going to be good to go for week one. You talk about another backfield that's just riddled with injuries right now. They have Jalen Wright, who is week to week right now. They signed Alexander Madison, who is on the IR and out for the season. They got rid of Raheem Mostert, obviously. And then you have Ollie Gordon coming in as the handcuff here. So if you end up drafting Achane, just make sure that you reach up a round or two to grab Ollie Gordon in your draft as a handcuff in case he misses week one, in case something happens to Achane. You have who I think is going to be the clear workhorse in Miami if something were to happen to Achane. He's going to catch a million balls. You have Jonnu Smith kind of seeping his way out of here into Pittsburgh, and that opens up a ton of targets around the line of scrimmage, which is where Achane and Jonnu ate last year. So as long as Achane is healthy for week one, which again, GM Chris Greer came out like 2 or 3 days ago and said Devon Achane will be ready for week one. Sounded pretty cement about it. I felt comfortable enough. I'll let y'all know. I talked about your idiot league mates and the YouTube channel that we have with our league and our draft within the office. I took Devon Achane, spoiler, with my second round pick at the 209, 210 or something like that. So he was my second round pick. I'm dying with Devon Achane, if that makes you feel any more comfortable with it. If you're going to be miserable this year and take Achane, you could be miserable with me. That draft, again, the vlog will be going live probably today if it's not already live. So subscribe to that channel to watch our fantasy league throughout the year. All right. And then Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry. Not much to talk about there. Moving to tier 3. These are still guys that I would be fine with as my RB1. Obviously, the further you move down the rankings, like the less comfortable you feel. But these are guys that I think are just absolute studs and very much worth a mid to late second round pick. You start with Ashton Genty up top, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, and Kyron Williams. They are the clear workhorses in their backfield. Genty, top 6 pick over there. I think the Raiders should just be an improved offense. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, they want to run the ball Geno Smith coming in raises the floor of the offense. He's a guy that could play on all three downs, obviously, and just really, really talented. So love Genty. Chase Brown set up to smash in Cincinnati. This is an offense that's going to score 30 points per game, and he's really involved in the passing game on early downs. Don't overthink that one. You know, he's not like the typical guy that comes in and breaks out, but he did last year. And I'm just expecting that to continue into 2025. Zach Moss is not there anymore. You literally just have a dusty ass Samaje Perine and 6th-round pick Taj Brooks. Bucky Irving, probably going to go nuclear this year in Tampa Bay, taking over as the workhorse there. Should get way more involved in the passing game. I think he proved that over the second half of last year. And I could see him really like working his way into a 3-down workhorse role in Tampa Bay's backfield. And it should be a relatively high scoring offense. So you just want a piece of the starting running back, goal line back, 3-down pass catching back. Like Bucky Irving's probably going to have a phenomenal year. Same thing with Jacobs. Good offense, good offensive line, very high floor, goal line back. Marshawn Lloyd now on the IR, so again, doesn't have a real running back behind him of consequence. It's Emmanuel Wilson again, so you should expect exactly what we saw last year out of Jacobs again this year. Jonathan Taylor, a little bit of a different story. The reason he's down at RB11, when I know he's proven that he can have more upside than RB11, obviously, is I just worry about the Colts offense overall. They did lose some of their interior offensive linemen, Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. They do still have a lot of really good pieces on the offensive line, so I don't want to over dramatize the losses there. But I will say that's one concern. Daniel Jones is the quarterback. That's another concern. The offense itself is a third concern. I'm not concerned with the work going anywhere besides Jonathan Taylor, just more of the offense overall. And in a full PPR setting, he's obviously not a very high ceiling pass catcher. And the same could be said with Kyren Williams, who is the RB12 here. He is the last player in tier 3. When I look at the Rams offense, I think there's obviously risk due to Stafford's back. If he's out, then you're not going to see as many scoring opportunities on the goal line, and that's where Kyren really eats. I believe of all of his rushing touchdowns last year, the furthest rushing touchdown he had, like the furthest out from the end zone, was 7 yards. I mean, if they're not inside the 10-yard line, then he's not going to score a lot of touchdowns. That's obviously the case if Jimmy G is there instead of Stafford. He can obviously still operate an offense, but Kyron's not like overly involved in the passing game. Realistically, I'm not too worried about Jarquez Hunter and Blake Corum. Like if Blake Corum was a thing, he probably would have been a thing last year. I think they're just trying to make sure that if Kyren were to get hurt, then they have some sort of usable back behind him that they can still run their offense through. I think between Hunter and Blake Corum, they have it. But Kyren Williams getting that extension really just signals that as long as he is healthy, McVay and this offense are going to run their backfield through Kyren Williams. So I honestly am expecting another massive opportunity share for him. Moving into tier 4, we've got just 3 players. We got Amari Hampton, Alvin Kamara, and James Cook. Honestly, 3 like very, very drastically different players here. Amari Hampton, obviously the first-round pick with the Los Angeles Chargers. They lost Rashawn Slater for the season a couple weeks ago, which is going to be a hit for everybody. Najee Harris, they're saying he can possibly play in week 1. He's not put on the PUP, so he will be playing sooner rather than later. I'm not really sure what the situation is there with him. We don't know anything about the eye realistically. He's also missed so much practice time. You're not sure how acquainted he is with the starters, with the first team, and more importantly, with the actual scheme, right? This is a brand new, like Hampton's a rookie, but Najee Harris is also new to LA and needs to learn this complex Greg Roman run scheme as well. So I don't know how ready he's going to be to actually contribute right away. Amari Hampton is probably talented enough to just run away with the job if he can solidify that role out of the gate. So I do think he has like workhorse upside in an offense that should put up a lot of points and give the running backs a lot of touches. In full PPR, I could see you throwing Kamara over him because typically running backs don't catch a lot of passes in a Greg Roman offense, and could see that being the case here in LA, especially if it's split between Hampton and Najee. We know the case with Alvin Kamara. I don't expect another running back to eat into his workload, but this is projected to be one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL in New Orleans. We have Spencer Rattler starting, but we could see Alvin Kamara catch another 80, 85 passes again. We don't need him to be that great on the ground if you're going to do that in a PPR league. So, business as usual for Alvin Kamara here. RB14. James Cook did just get his extension, so congratulations to Mr. Cook out there in Buffalo, coming off of a ridiculously high touchdown season. Everyone just assumes that's going to regress, and I do think that is the case. He could still score, 12 touchdowns because this Buffalo offense is so good, and they're going to live inside the 5-yard line, and they're going to live inside the 10-yard line, and he is the preferred goal line back there, as long as Josh Allen is not taking all of those touchdowns. But we also saw Josh Allen last year take double-digit rushing touchdowns from the backfield, and James Cook still ended up with, I believe it was 16 rushing touchdowns. If we go take a look at James Cooks's profile in our draft guide right now, one of the cool features of it is this, this tiebreaker matrix, or the tiebreaker stats that I tend to look at to see how heavily I should invest into a back right now. If you look at his Vegas lines, he's set at 8.5 rushing touchdowns over under. So that's a really healthy number for just on the ground. You add in another 2, 3 through the air, and you're looking at double digits again. Projected team win total, which is another stat in there, at 11.5. So this is a team that's just going to utilize the ground game a lot. Like when you are leading, you tend to use your running backs in a very high capacity, although he's only getting around 50% of the snaps. Like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson are still very involved, but just dominating game script, and James Cook being as talented as he is. And in our draft guide, we have the offensive line ranks for all these players in their tiebreaker matrix. He is running behind the 5th best offensive line in the NFL. Deion Dawkins and what they've assembled there has become really, really, really a strong suit for Buffalo. So it's one of those where you could like talk yourself into all this like regression of touchdowns. But like I mentioned in the wide receiver video yesterday, stats can get you directionally accurate, right? In terms of like player evaluation, but then just using context will get you the rest of the way. Like, sure, some touchdown regression is going to come James Cook's way, but then when you put the context of like, not too much, because he is the goal line back in a very, very high scoring offense now, right? Like it's still going his way. So don't overthink James Cook as a solid RB2. Moving into tier 5, we have 5 more guys here. And these are guys that are, for the most part, veterans that either have some sort of injury concern or just overall team success concern. We have Kenneth Walker, James Conner, Tony Pollard, Travion Henderson, and Chuba Hubbard. Travion Henderson is a very late riser throughout the August months. Obviously, him all the way up at RB19 in full PPR is based on everything we've heard out of camp, just how impressed they are with Travion Henderson. Obviously, a lot of his gameplay throughout the preseason has shown just how explosive he is. And I've kind of opened my mind up a little bit more to this not just being a pure Ramondre on the goal line and early downs, Travion Henderson in a gadget pass catching role, to the possibility, slim, but the possibility of Travion really taking over a 65% role in this offense because they simply can't keep him off the field. The other guys, Kenneth Walker, I think he's great. I really do, but there's only so many years in a row that you can just get hurt and Zach Charbonnet can fill in and play great, and then that doesn't eventually become part of the game plan. I do think they're going to open it up for Kenneth Walker to start the year, and if he can stay healthy and capture that momentum, there's a chance that he rides his way into a top 5 season. But there are a lot of things that I think can break wrong in Seattle. They had a terrible offensive line, which was massively upgraded this offseason with their first-round pick, Gray Zabel. But, again, there's some moving parts here. James Conner, I love him. Kind of a boring pick. First year in Arizona, a lot of people forget 15 rushing touchdowns. I think that is within the range of outcomes for him. Never going to be this explosive, like very, very high ceiling type of guy, but love him as my RB2. Tony Pollard's kind of in that same mold, just in a little bit more of a questionable offense. Tajay Spears starting on the pup, missing at least 4 games, which means Tony Pollard should be an 80% plus opportunity share guy. And I think Cam Ward coming in gives this offense and this team and Tony Pollard a ceiling that they did not have last year. So love Tony. Chuba Hubbard, same thing out there. They did sign Rico Dowdle to play his backup. They used a 4th-round pick on Trevor Etienne. So there are some signs that they want to lighten the workload on Chuba Hubbard. And Carolina, if I dip back into our draft guide, is a 6.5 win team per Vegas right now. His line is set at 950.5. His touchdowns are 6.5. They do have the number 1 ranked fantasy playoff strength of schedule, do have a very, very good offensive line. So there are a lot of positive for Chuba. He was awesome last year. I do think the work will come down a little bit, but he's still a very, very solid piece to have on your team. So again, that information is in the draft guide. I've pitched this to you guys plenty of times. If you have a draft coming up in the next few days, the draft guide will be like the perfect bumpers for you to use and make sure you dominate your drafts. It is live right now, bdge.co. All right. If you go check out the website and click the partner offers link in the top right of the website, that will give you an opportunity to get the draft guide at a very, very, very discounted price if you qualify for one of our partner offers. Otherwise, you can cop it for full price. Still very much worth the value for you guys. bdge.co. Check out the draft guide. Just to rewind, I want to actually give you targets for where I'm looking at these tiers. I kind of started with the tier 1 Gibbs, Barkley, Robinson were, early to mid first rounders. Tier 2 was back end of the first at that turn. Tier 3 was early second, anywhere really in the second round. Tier 4 is where I'm looking at like mid third to early fourth, usually the back of the third, very, very early fourth. Tier 5, the one I just went over, Kenneth Walker, James Conner, Tony Pollard, Travion Henderson, Chuba Hubbard. They're usually starting to go off the board somewhere in like the mid fourth or all the way till the mid fifth round, which I think is the perfect place to be getting those guys. Tier 6, these are guys that we are looking somewhere from like the mid fifth to the mid sixth or even into the early seventh, depending on your league type, how early running backs go. I know in a lot of home leagues, running backs tend to go early. I've got Breece Hall at the top of this list as my running back 21, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, RJ Harvey, DeAndre Swift, Tyrone Tracy, and David Montgomery. And I'm not going to lie to you, in real time, I'm going to move DeAndre Swift over RJ Harvey here. So Swift is now the 24, RJ Harvey is the 25. I got Breece Hall at the top. If you've been following me since literally like the draft, I have never been more out on a team than I am on the New York Jets offense. That being said, Breece Hall is now dropped. Like he was, an RB12, RB13 beginning of the summer. He's now RB20-ish. The Braylon Allen hype has not stopped. There have been rumors that they might try to get rid of Breece Hall if Braylon Allen looks good enough at the beginning of the year. This should just be a team that doesn't pass the ball a lot, that does not score a lot. When they're inside the 5-yard line, Justin Fields is going to run a lot of those plays in himself for touchdowns. So Breece Hall could catch a decent amount of balls, but I really don't see a ton of upside with him. Behind him, Aaron Jones should be in a very good offense, a very, very improved offensive line, right? They were the ones who took Will Fries and Ryan Kelly away from the Indianapolis Colts, then used their first-round pick on an offensive lineman as well. So very, very good offensive line, very good weapon, should spread everything out. But they did bring in Jordan Mason this offseason to be the complement to Aaron Jones. So I don't see him getting as many touches as he did last year. That being said, he still should be a pretty usable, solid PPR play. Isaiah Pacheco right underneath him. As I've said, watched a lot of the preseason this summer. He looks exactly back to who he was prior to the injury last year. I am a little bit concerned about his role, which is why he's now like the RB23. We're going into last year, he was like the RB12, 13, 14 in that range. I think we're going to see some sort of a committee in this backfield between himself, Kareem Hunt in short yardage situations, Brashard Smith in obvious passing down situations. Like there's going to be some sort of a committee there, but Pacheco still an RB2 in this range for me. DeAndre Swift, Chicago Bears backfield, very, very improved interior offensive line. Ben Johnson coming in. Like you got to be excited about, what's going to happen in this offense. And if they do hit, if Caleb takes a big jump up, if Ben Johnson rights the ship here, someone in this backfield is going to eat. It could be Roschon Johnson, who has shown us basically nothing at the NFL level. It could be 7th round rookie out of Rutgers, Kyle Monangai, but it's probably DeAndre Swift here. So I like him as a high floor player. RJ Harvey, I think, has a lot of boom bust appeal, but in full PPR leagues, Sean Payton's going to scheme up a ton of passes to this guy. Every running back in a Sean Payton offense ends up seeing 50, 60, 70 targets if they're any good at being a pass catching back, even Javonte Williams last year. So RJ Harvey sneaks into the top 25. Tyrone Tracy is battling Cam Scatterbo throughout the course of the year, but I do think over the first half, it is completely his backfield. He was awesome last year as a rookie. I think things will open up for him as a 70% opportunity guy, a guy that can play on all 3 downs. He proved that last year. He's a very good pass catcher. He was really good at running the ball, and he's pretty new to the running back position. So I only expect him to get better and better and better. And I think this Giants team could be a little bit surprising. I don't think they're going to be a good team, but I think they'll be okay. And I think they'll be able to stay in games. And because of that, Tyrone Tracy will stay on the field often. David Montgomery rounds out the tier. Again, like I've said, this is full PPR. I'd move David Montgomery up a little bit in half PPR, but D-Mont's like one of those guys that I think you kind of have to decide what you want to do with the Detroit backfield, right? Most people are expecting the Detroit offense with no more Frank Ragnow to take a step back. No more Kevin Zeitler, no more Ben Johnson. Like, do you think that they're still going to be as potent of an offense as they were last year? Probably not. I mean, they were scoring 1 billion points a game, which allowed the running backs to score 35 collective touchdowns. Probably not going to happen. And if that's not the case, then like where does the production for the most part go? Probably to Jahmyr Gibbs, the high explosive, high ceiling type of games. Listen, D-Mont's awesome, and I think he encapsulates what Dan Campbell wants them to be as a team, like very hard-nosed, fucking punch you right in your mouth kind of thing. But I do think David Montgomery will have his time and place and play a little bit less than he did last year. So I'm not as high on D-Mont as I probably was looking at him very, very early in the offseason, like March, April, those months. But he'll be usable because I think more often than not, every other game, he'll probably score a touchdown. And we move on to the final tier, tier 7, which is loaded with players. And I'm genuinely looking at most of these guys in the same light. Like I don't feel any sorts of way that much better about Jaylen Warren, who tops this tier at 28, than I am about Braylon Allen down there at 41. So starting from the top, we got Jalen Warren, J.K. Dobbins, Caleb Johnson, Javonte Williams, Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret, Travis Etienne, Dylan Sampson, Austin Eckler, Jordan Mason, Tank Bigsby, Jerome Ford, Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet, Braylon Allen. It's like, yes, it's easy to look at Jalen Warren and say, how would you put this guy, the starter, in the same tier as Zach Charbonnet or Braylon Allen or XYZ, who are clear backups? That we're not drafting for week one. We're not drafting for what the Sleeper or Yahoo projection says for your starting lineup for week one. Over the course of the year, these guys, to me, feel like they have similar upside, downside, chances of breaking out, becoming a guy. You know what I mean? Like, you have to take all this into account when you're looking at these players. So we'll kind of break down some of the backfields that have multiple guys in these tiers. Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson. It's been very clear throughout the summer that Jalen Warren will enter the year as the starter. He'll catch a lot more passes than Caleb Johnson. I still think by the end of the year, Caleb Johnson takes the early down role here, and he gets a significant portion of the carries. But in a full PPR league, you know, with Kenneth Gainwell, with Jalen Warren, who are two proven pass catching backs, hard to see Caleb Johnson really catch more than like 25 passes this year, which isn't really going to help him crack RB2 numbers if he's not catching a ton of passes and if this offense is not really on the goal line often. Dobbins and Javonte Williams, kind of similar situations. Like, Dobbins is likely going to be the early down back over RJ Harvey here. And honestly, he's probably a little bit underrated. Like, I might take Dobbins over Warren because running backs in this backfield, like I just said, even if you're not a pass catching back, like, and J.K. Dobbins is good enough in the passing game that I'm not worried about this at all. Like, no matter who you really are, there's going to be a lot of targets going the running back way in a Denver backfield. So I like J.K. Dobbins. I think he's someone who's going to come out of the gate and probably for the majority of the year, as long as he doesn't get hurt, see 10 to 12 touches a week. Same thing with Javonte Williams. He's going into the year as the clear RB1 in Dallas. Does he have anything in the tank? I really don't know. There are reports saying he's finally back to full health. I mean, tore his ACL. It was like fucking 3 years ago. Like, guys come back in 8 months now, so I'm not buying into that. But the Dallas offense is going to have to move the ball. They're going to have to score a lot of points. He's ahead of Miles Sanders. Jadon Blue got very little run this summer because of the foot injury. Cool pass catching back, but he's not a guy that's going to carry the workload back there. He's not a guy who's going to see 15 carries a game. Javonte is. Ja'Cory Krosky-Moret, I know he's like the highlight of this summer right now in Washington. Very talented back, very late day 3 pick, rookie. Did not play much college ball last year because of ineligibility issues. Was awesome at New Mexico the year before that. They traded Brian Robinson, so now it's Ja'Cory, it's Chris Rodriguez, it's Austin Eckler here. Obviously, if we're taking shots on that backfield, we want to do it on the high upside guy, and that is JCM or Bill, as everyone's come to know him for whatever reason. I don't really feel like doing the research on why his name is Bill, but it is apparently. And yeah, give me the upside there because we know what Chris Rodriguez is and isn't. So he's exciting. He's fun. I'm not going out of my way to draft him in like the fucking 5th or 6th round. But if I get him, 9th round, this is a guy who could be the starting running back in a high-scoring offense. For Jacksonville, it's what I've been saying all offseason. I don't have a huge preference, one or the other, but in full PPR, I'm going to put Travis Etienne above Tank Bigsby. For Cleveland, I have Dylan Sampson above Jerome Ford. I will say Jerome Ford's going to be probably a sneaky good start for the first few weeks. Like, Cleveland plays Cincinnati in week 1. Quinton Junkins is not playing. We have no idea if he's going to be back at all this season. And if he's not, they just cut Pierre Strong. They've got like nothing back there. It is legit just Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. Running backs you have to give your running backs 28 to 30 touches a game, whether it's via targets or carries. Like, NFL teams just don't have fewer than that throughout the course of a game. That's going to be split 16-14, 17-13, one way or the other. Joe Flacco is a check down guy as well. So like, we don't, it's not fun. They're not going to score a lot of touchdowns, but they will get touches here. So I do think the Cleveland backfield is getting a little bit overlooked. And y'all know I just love Dylan Sampson as a prospect. So he's a guy for me that I have ranked inside the top 35. Austin Eckler, he's going to be the pass catching back in Washington. Jordan Mason in a PPR league, I'm not as bullish on him. I think Aaron Jones is definitely the guy there. Of course, he will score some touchdowns. Ramondre Stevenson, another guy who should get some work in this backfield, but it's Travion Henderson's pass catching role for show. Zach Charbonnet, Braylon Allen are just like extremely high-end handcuffs that I think will have roles in their respective offenses, and both can play all 3 downs if needed, if the guy in front of them gets hurt or if the guy in front of them gets traded. So those are like the highest end stashes you could probably have. So we will wrap there. That is 41 running backs for your draft, ranked, tiered up, double cheeked up on a Saturday morning. I know a lot of you guys probably have your drafts tonight tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, throughout Labor Day weekend, etc. So I hope that we have properly prepared you for your drafts. If you are not feeling 100% confident after these videos, again, I promise you the best way to feel great about your drafts is getting the BDG draft guide. It will make sure that you have tunnel vision. It will make sure that you have bumpers like you are fucking bowling and you're going to put up a 274 by the time you walk out of there, all right? It'll make sure you don't fuck anything up in your drafts and will set you off on the right foot for the season. BDGE.co for the draft guide. Hit the partner offers link in the top right to check out if you can get it for a very, very discounted price. If you enjoyed the video, hit the button that looks like this. Subscribe to the channel. If you want to see the quarterback tight end version of this tomorrow, yeah, we might just be digging out everything we fucking got at this point. Leave it all out on the field for the summer. And then, of course, week 1 rankings start next week. So if you want to see that, again, subscribe to this channel. Go subscribe to the Your Idiot League Mates channel. Draft day vlog dropping soon. I love y'all. Smoochies.